Hey there, and welcome back to Utility Sports. Subscribe if you do enjoy NFL content. We do continue to push this stuff out all the way throughout the entire offseason, all the way into next season. So now looking at what we have on the table, Matt Stafford will likely be traded before the Super Bowl happens. So what does this mean for the Detroit Lions? Obviously, they will be seeking first round compensation for Matt Stafford, a proven quarterback in the league, a guy that can really sling it. Obviously could be a really, really good option for a QB needy team, especially one that, might be playoff bound, but doesn't have that quarterback. Like a team that we talk about a lot here is Indianapolis being a great fit for, quite frankly, any quarterback that's either on the trade market or free agency. They are a great destination for whatever quarterback comes to them, just considering the infrastructure they have around them. So I'm going to prompt you with this, Sheldon. Who do you think the top five teams are to land Matt Stafford? Not just the likelihood, but in terms of fit.
Right. I love that question. I'm actually glad you expanded it out to five because a big thing with this trade, expecting it to happen before the Super Bowl, that to me, that means there's a lot of interest around the league. I think that there are multiple teams calling Detroit, talking to them about Stafford. So to me, the five teams right now that would probably stick out would definitely be Indianapolis at one. I think that they have the best infrastructure for a team that needs a QB. I think that they are in play for Stafford. I think the Pittsburgh Steelers are another team. Yes, they did bring in Dwayne Haskins. However, there's some question marks about Roethlisberger, his $41 million cap hit, if they're going to bring him back next year. Art Rooney II does not want him back at that number, he had said. So that'll be an option as well. Another team will be the Chicago Bears. I know that's an in-division rival. Very unlikely that a trade gets done there, but I think the fit makes a lot of sense. They have that infrastructure in place too, a really solid defense. They've got an okay running game, some wide receivers there. If Allen Robinson comes back, I think that's a possibility. Also, the Washington football team. They're another one of those teams too, right around that pick 20 mark, where they're probably not going to be able to get that franchise QB necessarily. So maybe they feel like they can really expand that number one pick that they have here in the draft, get Matthew Stafford, make him the QB of the future with Ron Rivera there in Washington. And one other team I'm going to mention is the Houston Texans, possibly. If Deshaun Watson news heats up a little bit for them, I think it's possible that we could see a flip between Deshaun Watson and Matthew Stafford, where the Lions end up paying a lot more. I know Dan Campbell talked about this being a long-term rebuild, and no better guy than Deshaun Watson to get that rebuild started with. I think that Detroit could maybe look at giving up some assets with Matthew Stafford to pull that. I think that's the least likely of the five, but I think that is something that could happen as well.
There's some other teams I'd like to bring up just because I think that would be interesting is the first off, San Francisco 49ers could be a wonderful location. Obviously, having Kyle Shanahan as his head coach would be great, but you're looking to move off of essentially Jimmy Garoppolo and his contract, and then you're just retaking in Stafford. And you can argue that Stafford is definitely the better quarterback between the two of them. So that is an interesting location for me. And another one is a team that very well could draft one, has a high pick in the draft, and that's the Carolina Panthers. They very well could look to try to accelerate, their current process and go and get a guy like Matthew Stafford.
Yeah, one other team too that just jumped into my head as well as the Los Angeles Rams. We've heard a little bit of the controversy between Jared Goff and Sean McVay. Obviously, they spent the number one overall pick on Jared Goff a few years back. However, it doesn't seem like it's working out. I think that they have a little bit of buyer's remorse on that contract that they gave him. It's very possible that we could see a flip between those two guys as well. Goff possibly going to Detroit with Stafford coming back to LA. I think that's a possibility as well. Stafford, I think, has outplayed Goff a lot in recent years, especially this year. A very good season for Matthew Stafford. And I think Sean McVay is looking for a guy who would bring toughness, leadership, and a guy who's going to give you a lot of different things at that quarterback position, strong arm, accurate throw of the football. I think that the Rams have the infrastructure too, that maybe with a different QB there, they could be taking that team to the next step as well.
Yeah, I think that's a really good team to bring up. Obviously, they have a phenomenal defense right now. They're just kind of that quarterback away, I think, to really pushing themselves in the conversation of a true contender in the NFC. But I think Matthew Stafford could give you that. I don't think that, I think a lot of people sleep on Matthew Stafford's ability, just considering that he has played in Detroit his whole career. He's the toughest quarterback in the league, in my opinion, from an actual physical standpoint. He takes a beating and continues to play regardless. But he's definitely a guy worthy of bringing in. I think we could both agree that Indianapolis is the best fit as a whole.
Yeah, I definitely think so. Looking at Indianapolis, and the nice thing for Stafford there is if he does land in Indy, they have that offensive line to protect him. Something he's kind of struggled with in his career. That Detroit Lions offensive line hasn't been the most sturdy for him. He's taken a lot of hits, especially really early in his career. I think it'd be really good for him to settle in a place that he's going to have protection. Maybe they come out, grab a couple receivers this offseason. They have a lot of cap space as well. They have the second most in the league right now at about $63 million heading into the offseason. So they could very easily take in his contract and build with him moving forward. Also add a little bit more talent in free agency next to him. And I think the Colts could be a team that really jumps into that contender spot as well that you had mentioned earlier. One question I have for you, Austin, is what do you think a package for Matthew Stafford looks like from some of these teams?
Yeah, so let's talk about Indianapolis. I think that they would I think they'd be willing to trade their first in this kind of deal. I think it would kind of look like, a first from Indy in exchange for Stafford, and possibly Detroit would send back like a fourth or a fifth rounder in that. So they get that first round asset. They just have to give up one of their later picks. I think that's kind of the value we're looking at here. I think they're going to make an emphasis on it being a first, considering there's so much buzz around him on the trade market. I think teams are gonna bid each other up all the way to that first round pick, and then we'll kind of see from there. But I think first round, end of first round is more of his value. Obviously, a team like Carolina wouldn't trade their first for him. Washington, it's very possible that they do, just considering who the quarterbacks will be at their number 20 pick.
Right. Yeah, definitely. That's going to be the thing to watch too is how a team like Carolina maybe tries to get in here and bid, possibly throwing in a second and a third round pick, possibly, which would be a scary situation for teams around the league. If you're able to bring in Stafford and then keep pick 8 here in the draft, maybe bring in a versatile playmaker like Kyle Pitts, or continue to improve that defense, grabbing someone like Micah Parsons, or a cornerback like Caleb Farley or Patrick Surtain. That's going to be something to monitor as well here with Carolina. I think that they're a great fit for Matthew Stafford, just based on what their timeline looks like, the weapons that they already have. And I think Matthew Stafford, it's actually been kind of surprising how quickly I feel like this has accelerated. Basically, his trade request and mutual parting with Detroit happened just a little bit over a week ago. And now we're seeing it's very likely that he's going to get moved. I think Deshaun Watson, his is going to progress much at a slower rate than what we've seen here with Stafford. And it's pretty exciting, actually. I hope to see Stafford in a situation where he gets to win, get some more of that recognition around the league. So I think he really deserves it.
Yep. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. If you did enjoy the video, please leave a like. Also, subscribe if you do want to see more NFL content like this. We cannot wait to put out the next video, and let us know in the comment section below, where do you think Matt Stafford will go? We will see you guys in the next video.